Welcome to the Trade Up podcast, inspired by the book Trade Up. Why buy a job when you can start a career? Written by John Finan and me, Lisa Brandt. On today's episode, John offers his take on a few hot topics. An article about skilled trades in Maclean's magazine gets specific with salaries and why people change their minds about pursuing a trade. Some of the personality traits that make a young person a good employee. But first, the trouble with higher education. The federal government has cut the number of international students that universities can admit, and there's been a steep decline in foreign student enrollment. An advocacy group says that could end up meaning bigger classes, fewer researchers, and lower quality education for everyone attending university. Here's John Finan.
Well, the short answer is they haven't kept up with the times. I mean, the times are different. We don't sit in classrooms 8 hours a day and do that 30 hours a week and take 4 years off of working potential and rack up the kind of debt. People don't want that. The technology is such that online meetings work fine and online learning is fine. And you're seeing that already with the lack of enrollment. I mean, I don't know what the breakdown exactly in Canada is, but I know in the States, the stat is 60% women to 40% men. And what that typically means is that the guys are just taking the jobs that are there. Like, why would I spend money to go to university now when there's a job waiting for me that's paying well? And that's exactly what the trades are. And I think they're just opting to that. And will they circle back with an online degree later in life? Many of them will. I can tell you it's a lot harder as a 30-year-old to leave your career and whatever else is going on in your life and go back to school for 4 years. So unless the universities sort of pick their game up and get with the times, and it may be too late for many of them, like a lot of things, there's a lot of fluff goes on. There's, I think, 7 universities in Ontario that are running deficit budgets, and probably 4 of them deserve to be gone or amalgamated with other universities. And that's just the way it works in the real world. And academia has to come full circle and be part of the real world at some point.
Well, this is what had me concerned when I'm reading this, and they're so dependent on foreign students. So this has been going on for some time because that's what they're crying foul about, is that we can't have all these foreign students in here now, and they were propping us up. And now for whoever is left, they're going to have larger class sizes, they're going to have fewer choices in classes and all that kind of thing because of fewer foreign students. So are domestic students not going to university? That's what it makes me wonder.
I would suspect there's a lot of pressure not to go to university when you see the costs of it, the benefit of it. A 4-year degree is, I don't want to say useless, but it certainly does not have the value that it had 40 years ago. And I think people are coming to that realization. And employers certainly will. You want to get the job done, you want to be profitable, but you don't necessarily have to have somebody with a 4-year degree in anything. Engineering, yes. Medicine, yes. Legal, maybe a lawyer, these kinds of things are, but that's a small fraction of who actually graduates from universities. And I think students and their parents are becoming wise to this, and they're saying no.
There is a really big article in Maclean's magazine right now. It's all about the skilled trades, and it gets into actual salaries, things that you can go for, and some of the reasons why people drop out. So let's start with that. They say that a couple of the main reasons that people drop out when they are going for a skilled trade, they don't make it all the way, is because there's a lot more math and memorizing. And I know for electrical, you've got to do math, right? Is there a lot more math?
I would say there's not. And yes, I think the minimum requirement for electrical, at least when I went through, I'm sure it's the same, is grade 10. And let's face it, most of what we use on a daily basis in terms of math, we probably learned by the end of grade 6. Your times tables, how to do, multiplying, adding, subtracting, dividing. You need to do a good bit of it in your head. Yes, there's some of that goes on in the trade, but that is not a large part of it. It's the work. And if I had to say why the completion rates aren't what they are, it's probably because the work is tough and the requirements for you to give your all every single day are there, which is, I think, great for a young person to get their first working career start in an environment where production matters. You can't just mail it in. Every day is important. You're being judged by the person that's working beside you, behind you, on the next floor up, the next floor down. And if you're not holding your weight, you're gone. And you know what? I think some people just realize that they're not cut out for certain jobs or certain environments. I would say jobs. Everybody could do the job. It's whether you would put in the effort knowing that there's other options out there. And we all gravitate to where we're comfortable. If we're not comfortable giving it all for 8 hours a day, there's jobs for those people. Lots of people do that. And if somebody wants to work 16 hours a day, night and day, they get paid well and they have jobs to do as well.
It's funny, back to math for just a second. I made a joke around a friend of ours about algebra. Like, it wasn't an original joke. It was kind of like, what do we ever use that for? And our friend who's a contractor said, I use it every day. I use algebra every day. And that's math. Yeah, that's not something that everybody wants to do. But he was just like, what are you talking about? Algebra is essential. I can see some people saying, yeah, it's not essential to me. So
yeah, well, as there's one of our customers, he's a math professor at one of the universities, and he was wearing a T-shirt when I was over there. It said 9/7 of people don't understand fractions. I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
It's perfect.
Yeah, sir. The memorization, I mean, gosh, I'm getting older. It's harder to remember all the things that I have to do that are in my calendar. So I put them in my calendar. Memorization is probably not, as big a deal as the article makes it out to be. I mean, what do you need to memorize? Get up at 7, brush your teeth, have a shower, be on the bus or wherever by 7:30, get to work in time to start your shift or your school or whatever it is. I mean, that's the thing you need to remember the most. And most employers, at least in the beginning, are going to spend an awful lot of time on training and verifying that you're doing it right.
Another thing that this article said, it had some salaries in there. The average annual salary for a construction manager, just under 90 grand. A power systems electrician, 95. A mining supervisor earns more than 120. Is it really averaged out this way, or is it kind of all over the place?
Well, I think you need to dig into them. When you say mining and you say just over 100, it sounds low to me. I've known many people that have gone out west to tar sands and to various projects out west where they're living in a camp and they're making far more than that. Hopefully they're saving it. A lot of the jobs not only pay a lot of money, but they actually pay for accommodations and food. So we had a young apprentice. I think he was maybe 21. Girlfriend was just leaving London to go to university in Ottawa. This is probably 2007, 2008. There's quite a big oil boom going on. And he said, look, I've got an opportunity to go to a job that I work 22 days a week and I'm off 8. And they fly me back and forth from somewhere in Ontario, and Ottawa is one of the hubs. So he left us. And of course, he moved in with his girlfriend at university, lived there for 8 days, got on a plane, flew out to a camp. And the deal was he had to be there for his contract was at least 3 months at a time. So he did that, made a lot of money. He only lasted 6 months. And then he came back. He got a job that was paying far less. But he said he just didn't like the atmosphere that he had to work in. He actually complained a lot about the fact that the engineering guys would come along and ask them to redo work that they had spent 2 weeks doing and just do it a different way. And of course, they're not blaming them and they're paying them to do it. But he didn't like that. So, hey, to each their own. But I know that he was making way more money there than anybody would be making in Ontario doing a similar job.
One of my cousins was a supervisor in Fort McMurray for a while, and he made way more than $120,000. But he also didn't live that far away. He lived out there. He wasn't flying back and forth. The lifestyle suited him. And plus, he loved telling people what to do. So that was a...
And he got paid well to do it.
He got paid very well to do it. So, the investment announcements just keep coming too, John. The federal government's announcements. The Ontario government made one recently about a big training center in Vaughan they're going to put dozens of millions of dollars into. And it's just clear that the trades are the future, because they're not only the future, they're the present, but that the investment is going in there, because not all these people are who go into a skilled trade are picking up a hammer or another piece of machinery too. There are a lot of things that are done on a laptop now. And so it's kind of future proofed. So it's kind of neat to see that all this investment is going that way.
Yeah, it is. And, you have to be a little bit careful when the waves start rolling in one direction to jump on them, because the next thing you know, everybody's on the waves. So when it comes to the trades and booming times, wonderful to be a tradesperson at that time. when things slow down, and they slow down in lots of economies. So I would only assume that if you're, an analyst or you're in the administration department of a large insurance company and an economic downturn hits, probably doesn't affect the staff levels that much. But I can tell you it comes to a screeching halt in the construction industry, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting into an indenture trade where, they're not flooding the market. And I think from the perspective of what you said about a couple of dozen millions of dollars that they're putting into a trade center, I think it's really good publicity for the government to be pushing in that direction. I mean, at the end of the day, they probably are realizing that, a lot of young people, particularly males, just are opting out of going to university and spending that money. So, hey, we don't want them sitting around the house doing nothing. We need them working, and more importantly, we need them paying taxes. So let's make sure we can get as much money out of an 18 to 25-year-old as we possibly can.
Right. It's not a charity. And there is an election coming up. Isn't there always an election coming up somewhere in Canada or the U.S.? Yeah. Funny, my husband and I go on a walk every day, and we walk by the same group of kids and when I say kids, I mean high school, mid-high school, somewhere around there. And they all ignore us because, we're older and whatever. But there's one kid every time he looks up and says good morning to us both. And my husband said, if I was going to hire a kid, that's the kid I'd hire. I'd love to know what the difference is between how they were brought up, how they think, how whatever, that he actually makes eye contact and says good morning. It sounds like such a small thing, but that's the kid you want working for you.
It is. But the older I get, the more I realize two things: that a lot of what you see from, I'm guessing there's a half a dozen of them there, a combination of boys and girls. So I think a lot of the indifference that you see is not probably that. It's just, they're not outgoing. They're extremely self-conscious at that age. I mean,
That's true too. Yeah.
It's off the chart, right? So what you've got in that person, that boy that says good morning every morning is, you got an extrovert who's very comfortable in his own skin. So Derek's not wrong. Hire that guy, because that's exactly, you don't necessarily need somebody to be an extrovert to be a good staff member, but somebody that's got confidence in themselves.
True.
That's a very good skill, because you don't actually lose that as you get older. You become more that way. Whatever good habits you have tend to create more good habits. And yeah, you're right. If he's 16, 17, 18 doing that, you got a leader for sure, at the very least, whatever industry he goes into.
Yeah, either that or a serial killer. It could go either way, but we like that kid.
We have enough serial killers. We need more leaders.
That's a good point.
We need more plumbers, less serial killers.
Certainly got dark. I've been watching reruns of Dexter lately. Thanks for being with us. To learn more about our book, visit tradeupbook.ca. To get in touch with John about a guest, to have him speak to your group about skilled trades, or to ask a question, email John at tradeupbook.ca. Until next time.